Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Taft City Council Successor Agency Joint Regular Meeting for Tuesday, September 15th, 2015, here at City Hall. As a courtesy to all, would you please check your cell phones and put them on mute or vibrate or something. Tonight we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Hill and invocation by Bob Jordan with the Lighthouse Foursquare Church. So if you'll please stand.
Join me in saluting our flag and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. We just pray that from this point on, we speak of love and understanding among one another. Even there may be disagreements, may we agree in the status of love. We ask you to bless our city right now, Father, as we're getting ready to go into this Oil Dorado celebration, to pray for safety, protection for our police department, for our citizens, and for those who will be visiting us. Thank you for all you've done, and bless every single member of this community. In the name and through the power of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Bob. Madam Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Noor,
Here.
Councilmember Cryer,
Here.
Councilmember Bryant,
Here.
Councilmember Hill. Here.
Looks like we're all here. That's good. Item 1 is the presentation of proposed fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. Ms. Binkley, you're up.
Okay. Good evening, excuse me, Mayor and council members. This evening, I'm here to present the final budget for 2014-15 and the proposed budget for 15-16. There we go. Okay, so I thought this evening we'd start out, since we do have a few new council members, discussing the structure of the budget and the differences in the funds that are included in the budget. First of all, there's 21 separate different funds. The first fund is the general fund, which is the fund that includes like city clerk, finance, HR, the police department, those kinds of things. These accounts and these organizations don't have a specific revenue source that funds them, but we do have general revenues that support those functions. Then also we have funds 20, 21, 22, 23, and 4, and then Fund 36. These are actual separate funds that are required to be placed in a separate fund. They are normally a revenue source like gas tax money, TDA, and Fund 36 is asset forfeiture, drug forfeiture money that it can be specifically used for the police department. But again, mostly these funds are required to be in a separate fund themselves and are revenue driven, and the expenditures eventually can be transferred over to general fund to support, like gas tax money can support streets and roads repairs, and of course Fund 36 is asset forfeiture, which can support activities at the police department. Also, we have two different funds, Fund 38 and 50. Fund 38 is Landscape and Lighting District, and Fund 50 is the, excuse me, the Community Service Officer. Those funds are specifically, they do have a revenue source and expenditure, but they are part of the city in themselves. So Fund 38, which is Landscape and Lighting District, there is people that are in the Landscape and Lighting District on their property tax. There is a small charge to maintain the landscape and lighting around their homes and to keep the area looking nice and improve their property values. And then Fund 50, the Community Service Officer, we get $100,000 a year to help support the Community Service Officer to go around and do items that she does. But again, these are part of the city themselves. Excuse me. Okay, and then we have Fund 59, which is the Central Garage. It is an internal service fund. It services the city in itself, and then the actual cost is allocated amongst the different accounts and funds that actually use these services. And so that's why it's considered an internal service fund, and it is actually part of the city. Then the next line is funds, the funds listed there are Fund 51 is the correctional facility, Fund 53 is the inmate welfare, Fund 58 is the federal wastewater treatment plant, Fund 60 is sewer, Fund 61 is refuse, Fund 62 is transit, Fund 70 and 71 is this joint powers, the city wastewater treatment plant. All of these funds are actually treated like a business type. They have their own revenue sources and expenditure, but they're treated like a business. Excuse me. They're treated like a business. So they're part of the city, but they're not part of the city. They're kind of operated on individual basis. The cost for services is charged, and it should equal the matching the expenditures. And then finally, we have funds 65 through 67. These are redevelopment agency funds. As we know, the redevelopment agencies were dissolved a couple of years back. So Fund 65 and 66 were the operating fund, and 66 was low mod housing. Those two funds don't actually exist anymore. Fund 67 is the only fund left in the redevelopment agency, and that's servicing the debt. And then there's a little bit of administration, and so in the oversight boards and the successor agency, that is the fund that is still being maintained, which is Fund 67.
In between all these fund numbers, like the 40s, you missed, why are we skipping around those
Okay.
gaps in between the fund amounts or numbers?
Okay, the other fund balances, originally there may have been some funds that were set up and no longer exist now. And then like funds 40 and 41 and 48 are grant funds. Those are not included within our budget document because the grant documents preside over how those monies can be spent, so they're not included
So we
in the
have
budget.
funds, but they're not budget related.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Is there any other questions before we move on? Those are the 21 funds that are included in our budget. So, let's take a look at the budget, and we're just going to take a look at the highlights. Okay, changes made to expense, and this is changes in personnel. In the records administrative and city clerk, that is returned back to one position. In the prior year, as you know, it was one position, and then it went to two, and now it went to one, back to one. We also have an addition of an assistant in that department. In the city administration, there was an administrative assistant that a portion of her salary was going to the enterprise zone. Now that has come back because the enterprise zones have been disbanded. It's no longer. In the planning department, part of the planning department, the director's salary was going to redevelopment agency because they were taking care of minding the redevelopment agencies. Now, since that is no longer, 100% of his salary is going back to the planning department. In the finance department, we've added an additional part-time intern. In the police department, we've added, council approved to add one more additional police officer to cover patrols, since we have the 3 officers now doing the community, excuse me, the school resource officer's position. Also, in the police department, there was an increase in overtime because of AB 109, but we received $125,000 to offset that, those overtime. So that has been reflected in the budget. Animal control, we have filled a position for an animal technician, so now there's 2 people working out at the animal shelter. We have 1 patrolling and then 1 working the shelter themselves. And then in the street maintenance, we've added additional part-time positions, so we're at a total of 6 part-time positions to help assist with that. Council has approved those, and those are to help replace we recently, we had inmates doing those works, and now we had to backfill with part-time positions. Any questions from any member? No? Okay, to stay into the same area, we're going to talk about changes in CalPERS. In our original plans, which still do exist, in original plans, that we've had a change in the way that CalPERS presents the reports and how we're paying. Before, in last fiscal year, they would give us a percentage to pay, a percentage that it was a percentage of payroll dollars. So in 14-15, the miscellaneous plan, we would pay 11.032% of each salary dollar to CalPERS. The amount was supposed to pay our current portion plus our unfunded liability. Because of the new changes in CalPERS, we are now, they split out the unfunded liabilities. So in 15-16, we are paying a rate of 8%, plus you had the option, the city had the option to make payments every month over the year or pay a lump sum payment. Administratively wise, it was just easier to pay the lump sum payment and save a little bit of interest. And those payments are due prior to July 31st, so the city has already paid our lump sum payment. We paid it prior to that date. So for the miscellaneous plan, it was $121,000 shown there. And then on with the other one, it was police safety tier 1, which we only have 1 member. In 14-15, his rate was 227%. This year it's 13.8% with a lump sum payment of $75,800. And then the police safety tier 2 is the same. We were paying 16.13%, and in 15-16 we're down to 11.5% with a lump sum payment of $16,000. Now with the new plans that we're beginning January 1st of 2014, the new plans, the miscellaneous, it was 6.
When it again, start 2/14?
January 1st.
January?
Yeah, 2014. So any employee that started and brand new, had never worked for a government agency, will fall under these plans. Okay, so the rate was 6.25. For 15-16, that rate actually decreased on the employer's portion, and there is no unfunded liability at this time. So it means that we are paying as we go. Police safety, we just recently had hired some police officers that fell into this group. In 14-15, we had no officers in that. Or we may at the end of the year, I correct myself there. At the end of the year, we hired an officer that finally fell into this group. So, so our rate decreased to just slightly over 9%. And again, we're paying as we go, and there is no unfunded liability. And then finally, the last plan is the fire safety. This is what they call an inactive pool. It means we have people in the pool, but we currently don't have any current employees in that pool. And so there is no percentage, no current portion, but we do have a side fund and funded liability. Last year it was $38,000, and this year when we paid in July, it was $46,700. Any questions? I usually show this. This is the percentage of payroll to expenses. This shows that our actual expenses versus how much we're paying out of those expenses in payroll dollars. So as you see here, from 2011 to 2015, those are based upon actual expenses, and then 2016, it's per what is included in the budget. So our average total between safety and non-safety, we're averaging between 60 to 67%. And that's something to keep an eye on, because you don't want to really be top-heavy with salary and not be able to provide services. And if you compare this rate to other cities, this rate is slightly lower than normal in other cities. A lot of other cities are a lot higher. So I believe our rate, we're doing a good job, and I would never recommend it getting any higher than what it is now. Also, too, you got to keep in mind on the 16 budget, that rate will change because it's based upon budgeted numbers, not actual numbers. So once the year is over, we'll take a look at it again to see where we actually fell, and see if it comes out close to what we actually predicted.
So if I may, Teresa, your recommendation is, in order to maintain a healthy budget and a healthy city, that the city does not exceed basically 68% of the total budget committed to personnel, payroll, and personnel expenses. Is that correct?
I would, yeah. Because you have utilities, supplies, you got to pay for water for rails to trails, and those kinds of things. You need to leave that kind of money available for those kinds of expenditures.
After all, the role of government is to provide services to the taxpayer, not to provide retirement. That's been
Yeah.
proven in court, right?
Yes.
And I ask that question because we will be talking about this at length, and I won't interrupt you. But all the forecasts coming out of PERS is for substantial increases in deposits to all of the PERS programs over the course of the next few years. So if we as a city are currently at that point recommended by you that we do not exceed, we are at 68%, which, like you say, at the end of the year, we'll see where we fall. It could very well be 65%. However, for the benefit of all of us here, it's a very important number, because if indeed the legislature and the governor's office mandates huge increases in PERS deposits because they changed the rate of return calculation on the unfunded liability, you just told us that we shouldn't exceed that number. So that means we're going to have to find that money elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Because that would leave, say, of the 6.8 million, you have approximately 30% to spend on road repairs, water, those kinds of things. And I consider personnel costs like a fixed cost, like your house and those things that you're obligated to pay.
Right.
So there's no getting around it, no way to,
So if you're set up your household basically such that your obligations grow to a point where you have no discretionary funds, then you certainly can't keep up with the upkeep of any household, whether that household is a single-family dwelling or that household is a city the size of Taft, or that household is a city the size of Detroit or Stockton.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Well, on the other side of that, we have to increase revenue, so
Yes.
that's what we're always searching for.
Yes, because
Increase in revenue.
revenues exceed, match expenditures. So if you increase that, then you can increase your expenses.
Absolutely.
Okay, so changes in expenses continued. Because of having new council members, the training budget has been slightly increased to allow for the council members to get the necessary training. So we kind of built that into the budget. Last year, when Finance Committee looked at the actual expenditures as of June, council had exceeded their budget, quite significantly, but it was because there was new council members. So in the new budget, we did increase the training budget to allow at least another year of some training for the new council members and the rest of the members, so everybody could get their share of training. Also, in the records administrator / city clerk, there's an increase in training because we do have a new city clerk, and she's going to training to get all the necessary certifications and stuff that she needs to be able to do her job appropriately. Also, there was a slight increase in professional services. That is for Sterling codifiers to codify things for the planning department. Also, in Civic Center, there is an increase in office supplies for one time only. It was recommended that we look at purchasing a new display board for the outside of City Hall. So the supply budget for that Civic Center went from a low amount to a lot higher amount, so that kind of looks a little funny, but that's what that's for. And also in the budget, we continue to fund the $15,000 for the A Street maintenance that we give to the rec district to help support that park. In the finance department, there was a slight increase in computer maintenance. Our computers are getting a little bit older, needing a little more TLC. Possibly next year, we'll take a look at replacing some of them. Currently right now, we're at 4.5 years on those. So another year, we'll be looking at 5.5 years. And of course, the computers are heavily used, so that's something we're going to need to take a look at. In the personnel and risk management department, there's large increases in the city's liabilities for liability, property, and vehicle insurance. But what we did is, it's not fully burdened on the general fund. What we did was, since all the properties have been reevaluated, we took a look at all the properties, and so if a property was basically for wastewater treatment plant or for another fund, like the ones that we had discussed in the beginning, like the ones that are ran like a business, so we took a look at that and allocated the expense out based upon the value and the rates that were being charged out to those funds. So it kind of lessened the total expenditure that's being charged to general fund overall. So you won't see the full charge in the general fund, but it's been divided out. But there is an increase in that. In street maintenance, we increased the tree maintenance budget because we need to do some TLC there. And we also increased the annual street striping and minor street repair budget. We increased both of those budgets to really get that stuff caught up and get them in line. Okay, within this budget, we've budgeted some capital purchase items. Within the city administration, there is a vehicle budgeted. The city several years back had purchased a couple little Aveos for the city employees to use to go to the bank and travel. Those have getting quite old. So we've budgeted for a new vehicle, mainly to be used for employees needing to go out of town for travel, and have them travel in something a little more safer. Also, some of the furniture and fixtures around the city hall are getting a little worn, as you can tell. So we budgeted $2,500 to do a little bit of replacement on some desks and a little bit of stuff. Excuse me. In the finance department, we've budgeted $15,000 for office equipment. We have a couple copy machines that we need to take a look at replacing. We have 3 actually copy machines in City Hall. They were all purchased used from the military. We've had them now for about 5 years, and it's getting time to replace 1 or 2. They'll be replaced with just regular black and white ones. We already do have a nice, fairly new color one, so we're in good shape there. Also, prior year, we had some money budgeted to do some upgrades on Munis, but that was delayed. And we may be able to get some grant money to do some of these upgrades. So this project still may be delayed. We're waiting on seeing what we can do about getting that grant money. So that capital purchase of $20,000 may be lessened or not spent at all. In the police department, we've budgeted to replace 1 vehicle and some computers and furniture and fixtures over at the PD. They're basically in the same predicament we are at City Hall. A lot of chairs and stuff they've got from hand-me-downs from other agencies, and they just really need to be replaced. And then also, they've requested $10,000 to replace some air conditioning units on the building. In the building department, we have budgeted for 1 vehicle. The building official, he's had, I know of 2 or 3 hand-me-down vehicles, and he finally, we decided to budget and get him an actual new vehicle. Animal control, as you know, the animal control vehicles is in needing replacing. You have already approved that, and the vehicle has been ordered, but we went ahead and put it in the budget to account for it. And then street maintenance, striping and repairs of $70,000. So capital purchases have been scheduled at $299,000. Okay, this is something that I like to show that shows that what historically we had been budgeting and what historically our actual expenditures have come in at. Now, we know in a few of those middle years were trying years, but I like to show in the picture how we're getting in a much better situation than we have in the past. And the budget that we're proposing is very close to what last year's budget was. So we're keeping a conservative outlook on this budget. This budget pretty close mimics last year's budget, except for changes, but in overall total, it's pretty close to last year's. And then this is basically what you had just seen in a bar chart. And what you always would like to see is that the yellow line, the actual expenditures, are lower than the blue line, which means it's you've done a good job. As staff has done a good job.
Thank you for the multicolored bar chart. Just historically, I want to address the new members of the council that this is a great thing compared to the old Munis 290-page black and white small print document. So thank you very much for your efforts. It makes it real easy to demonstrate what's going on. I had to bring that up.
No problem. Any questions or comments from the rest of the council members? Okay. So let's talk about revenue estimates for 2016. Property tax revenues estimates are to remain at the 2015 budget level, which is $663,000. Sales tax estimate for the 2015 are remaining at the 2015 level at $1.4 million. Transit occupancy tax is estimated to be $95,000, which is less than last year. But last year there was a one-time anomaly. So this, if you took out that, this would be actually slightly higher than the previous year, 2014. In the current budget, business license fees are estimated to be slightly lower than 2015. 2014, that's the year that we increased the fees. 2015, they actually slightly decreased. And 2016, I'm estimating that they'll slightly decrease, but not significantly. Service fee and overhead generated from other funds is budgeted at approximately $2.1 million. Portion of that, as you know, comes from the MCCF. Revenues from the police department are budgeted at $391,000. That includes the school resource officers' contracts. And then transfer in from general fund of $632,500, of which the $299,000 was for the capital purchases that I showed earlier, plus infrastructure that will be reimbursed of $300,000 for Center Street project, and there was an additional $25,000 for the beginning of Church and Pilgrim project. So that's where the total, but a portion of this will be reimbursed eventually when the projects get going.
About half.
Yes, sir. So, this is the property tax, or excuse me, this is the revenue based upon each category. So, some of this I already discussed. So the total revenue resources is going to be $7,400,000. Excuse me. And as I talked about before, you could see the current other charges of 2.1, property tax at $663,000. Other city taxes, that includes sales tax dollars. And then licensing and permits, originally, like in 2014, it was approximately $144,000. Now it's down to $116,000, slight decrease, as I discussed earlier. And then, I think that's about it. Do you have any questions? So, these are revenue resources, and it shows how our revenue, the largest portion of revenue comes from other current charges, which other current charges can be found in your budget on
Fees,
other current charges.
page 25.
125.
Yes, 25. And on page 25 in your budget book, and as of that number, that does include the correctional facility from the service fee and overhead. So that's the division, and then, so that's why that is the largest portion.
Well, everybody has to be aware if we didn't have that,
Yes,
we'd be in a world of hurt for any kind of budget.
correct.
Wouldn't be such a good looking pie.
I love the pie.
You like the pie?
The
The
thing
colors
that,
on the wall don't come out as good as it is on
and
paper.
of that piece of that pie that we worry about the most is a 30-day out, so.
Yes. Yes.
So everybody has to be aware of that, staff and our taxpayers that help support the city. That's a big thing looming over us, so.
Yes.
We appreciate the income while we can get it, but
Yes.
it's not guaranteed.
No, and that's why I like to draw it out and let you know and let everybody know that's how it's affecting us. It's helping us significantly to get out of our deficit, but it will, if we do lose the contract, it would significantly, and we'd have to make changes.
One of the other large pieces of pie up there, the other city taxes, and we discussed this. We discussed it in the Finance Committee. We agreed to review it mid-year because it's kind of a crystal ball kind of affair. But if you look at trends, one of the big portions of that other city taxes, that 20.65%, is sales tax from sales of fuels within the city, gasoline and diesel. We're kind of getting a double hit right now in that regard. I mean, a lot of people are benefiting from the lower cost of diesel and gasoline and smiling, and that's a good thing. But then, again, it's not a bad thing, or it is a bad thing on the income side because we're comparing it to what we used to get. Also, obviously, there's a substantial slowdown in work within the city of Taft and within our industry that's going to exacerbate that condition as well. So that's something we have to be very cognizant of. That slice of pie, that 20.65%, could get impacted. And we talked about this, like I say, at length during Finance Committee. We agreed to keep an eye on it, and who's to say that it might not turn around. But at this point in time, the trend is something we need to be cognizant of.
The other piece of that pie is property taxes, which is, around 10% of our income. Building these homes that we're building right now, we need to have 10 times that. We need, to build out that Hilliard project, the 300 homes, and that would certainly help with our property tax situation and probably sales tax and everything else, so,
And support retail as well.
yeah. But we need people to buy homes.
Yes,
Let's
we
buy
do.
homes.
Okay, so this bar chart is a continuation of the chart that we've seen before, but this chart includes revenue. So we've added the revenue portion on there. So in prior years, you could see that the actual, like in 2008, we were doing good. The red line exceeded the yellow line, and we were below the blue line. But as the years went on, these kind of went into the bad. But now in 2014, the red line exceeded the blue line and the yellow line. So that was excellent.
2014 is kind of a model year. If you could do that every year, then this would be just a rosy thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And in 2015, we're not done accruing and stuff, but this is a time and picture at this time and place. So it looks, basically, we're almost even, which is good. It's not like 2010. So it's a good year. So that's kind of where we're at.
When did we close this, Susie, at 210?
November 2011?
November 11. Explains your huge increase in actual expenses in 2012.
Yep.
Well, the 210, 29, that's when the economy was not so good.
Any other questions? So, that's my presentation.
The
for
budget,
you.
great illustrations, easy to follow. Love your format.
Like my little...
Good job.
Ms. Binkley, we really thank you for getting through this. We know you've had a bout of bronchitis, and I'm surprised you made it this far, so I'm sure you're losing your voice a little bit, but thank you. Do we have any other questions of Ms. Mayfield? All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Thank you, Teresa.
Okay, item number 2 is approval of the final budget for fiscal year 2014-2015 and proposed budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Attached here too are the final operating and capital expenditure budgets for fiscal year 2014-2015 and the proposed operating and capital expenditure budgets for fiscal year 2015-2016. These budgets maintain the conservative fiscal policies of the City Council. These budgets were reviewed by the Finance Committee on August 26, 2015, and were recommended to be presented to the Council for adoption. Budgets with respect to certain grant funds, which are multi-year fixed agreed amounts for specific activities to be performed in accordance with contract agreements with the state and federal agencies, are controlled by the guidelines, laws, and regulations of the grant agreements. Hence, they are not included in these budgets.
All right, thank you. Well, the recommendation is I will accept a motion to adopt the resolution entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft Adopting the City of Taft Final Budget for Fiscal Year 2014-2015 and Proposed Budget for the Fiscal Year 2015-2016." Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any comment, Mr.
A lot of work went into this,
Crier?
and it's glad you got through it.
Right?
I just want to say thank you to Teresa for putting this together and the rest of the city staff for working within the means over the last year's budget. And then I know the efforts that are forthcoming over the next year's budget. So thank you to all the staff here for the city for working on behalf of the citizens.
Michelle?
No comment. Good job. Nice presentation.
Mr. North?
No additional comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have no comment. Madam Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember North?
Yes.
Councilmember Crier?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant?
Yes.
Councilmember Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Miller.
Yes, we have a budget. Thank you. Item number 3, citizens' request for public comments. This is a time and place for the general public to address the city council on matters within its jurisdiction. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. Council may receive comment and set the matter for a subsequent meeting. Please limit comments to 5 minutes. Our only person requesting comments is Blair Knox with California Independent Producers Agency. Welcome.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for having me here today. My name is Blair Knox. I'm with the California Independent Petroleum Association. We actually changed our name several years ago.
Oh, did you?
Senator, one of the senators in Washington, D.C. mistook us from the film producers, which actually might have helped us a little bit with her. But anyway, it worked out fine for us. I'm here today to request a proclamation for the Kern Energy Festival. This is a new event that SIPA is the title sponsor of. We're trying to accomplish a couple different things. One is to communicate better. A lot of people in our county really don't understand how the oil and gas industry works, and we're going to show them how it works. There are a lot of events going on this fall. They're going to be great events. They're going to be talking about it. We're actually going to show it to them. We're going to have a rig out there. We're going to have a hydraulic fracturing unit. We're going to have learning units for kids, for kids, high school, elementary age kids, so they learn how the oil industry works. And this is being done at the Kern County Museum, where the Black Gold exhibit is at as well. So we have multiple items for people to learn more about our industry. We're there to celebrate. We should be celebrating that we produce roughly 75% of the oil, of the energy needs of California. It's not just oil. It's wind, it's solar, it's renewables, bio, all of them. We're not anti-anything. We're pro-energy here, and we should be celebrating that. And the last thing, we want to educate. And the education portion is we're going to take the proceeds of what we make off this event and give it to STEM programs, local education programs, scholarships for kids, including some of the Taft Academies. So the idea is, to help our kids be better educated, but also to keep our homegrown talent at home. We think it's great what Taft College has done. Now Cal State Bakersfield has an engineering program, which we've been fighting for years. Some of the money is going to go towards that. Keep that homegrown talent and keep it working for us here in the industry. The event is November 7th. It's at Kern County Museum, and very much appreciate a proclamation in support of that.
Well, I'll request that resolution be put on next council agenda, if I can get concurrence.
I would concur with that absolutely and positively.
Blair, I thank you and SIPA. We were having a celebration, matter of fact, not only your little thing going on, but we have a great big old El Dorado coming up in about 3 weeks. So, and that celebrates the City of Taft's incorporation in 1910, plus our relationship with the oil industry. And we want to thank you for a generous donation to the Oil Dorado Committee to help us fund and put on the Oil Dorado celebration. So
Every 5 years.
if you'll get the information we need to the city clerk, we'll get you a resolution. And thank you for coming over.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I add, did we make last June, make October also Oil Appreciation Month? We did that one earlier last year. Yeah, that little deal at the fort. And along that-
Did we, or?
I thought we did.
Well, I'd have to check with the clerk and have to check the records. We had Oil Appreciation Month, is what you're saying?
We had one for the week, then we made it also along with it, made it for the month of October, the following year for El Dorado.
So are you,
No, I was want me to go back and check with you.
okay.
Double checking.
Research that. I'll let you know.
Okay, we're good, thanks. All right, well, thank you so much. Item number 4, council statements, non-action. Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, as many know, it has been in both papers that we are having a flower planting festival on the 26th. You like that festival? On the 26th of this month, we are going to, with a group of volunteers, we will be planting the the planters from 6th Street to 4th Street. There are 14 planters. We've had lots of people call. I've had lots of calls, and we are very thankful for all the many people who have donated. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Knorr. We appreciate your donations. We are going to have food there for those people who are working hard. We will have hopefully a good time, and lots of people won't make the work too hard. So we have almost everything detailed out. So I ask and invite anybody who can and will, please come down and dig us a hole.
Bring some implements with you.
Please bring your shovels and your gloves. Yes, and I would recommend a hat because we all know it's going to be hot the day we try to do this. So again, that's all I have. Thank you
Once
very
again, would you repeat the day and time and
On
place?
September 26th, downtown, we're going to meet in front of Black Gold for coffee and donuts, and then at 7 a.m., and then from there, we'll start divvying up the work and getting the groups ready. And so please, everybody come out. We'll have a little coffee, a little donuts, and after we work for a while, we'll have some lunch. So everything's been donated, and I can't tell you, it makes my heart feel good to know how many people really do care about their city when it comes to, we need something, start asking, and everybody's joining in. I think it's going to really make our street look beautiful when we have our parade and we have everybody down here for El Dorado. And the plants that we're planting are going to be drought tolerant. They should be nice and hardy. I've got some nice stickery ones in there, so when people try to walk through and ruin our planters, they won't walk through twice, hopefully. We have welders going to weld sign holders, so we can have signs that will detail out all the oil field art. That way people know what that art is. Sponsorship names will be on there. They may not be up by El Dorado, but we're hoping. But the plants will be in. So I think it's going to be very exciting to get our street looking pretty again. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bryant.
Just wanted to extend my sympathies to the Clark and Arnold family. As most of us know, that they lost Margot Arnold this last week. Definitely, trying to think of the word, a stalwart, for lack of a better term, in the community and out and about. So I want to extend sympathies to the family. We definitely lost a treasure there. And then again, thank city staff for their efforts as we get closer and closer to El Dorado. And not only just city staff, but the folks on the El Dorado board and the folks just involved in general. Looking forward to a great celebration in October. Looking forward to being out with Miss Hill on the 26th, and hopefully many of you other folks out there. And that's all I got. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor. More things that sure is happening around town. 2 blocks of new streets. Motel's coming along pretty good. Asphalt's being laid. Signs up. Fifth Street Plaza is about finished, if it's not finished already. El Dorado building is looking really nice on the outside. Things are happening. And our next council meeting next month be almost all wrapped up, but things are really happening. Hope everybody appreciates what the city's doing and all the volunteers that it takes to do all this. It's a big event, and we'll have a great time next month. Thank you.
Sonora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to offer my condolences to the Arnold family. I got to work with Margot when we were talking about the healthcare study many years ago, and she was very involved, and Mayor Miller spent a great deal of time with them, and was also involved with the hospital for many, many years. I don't think there's a single thing he hasn't volunteered for yet, so I'm sure he's going to volunteer for Council Goddess Hills project. You're welcome. But anyway, our thoughts are with their family, and I want to thank Margot for everything she did for this community. She was dedicated to the people and to the community as well. Since our last city council meeting, a holiday has passed, at least a day for remembrance, and that was September 11th. So I don't know what everybody was doing on September 11th, but we need to remember the lessons learned of September 11th. That's part of the reason I'm wearing my red, white, and blue shirt today, and I try to wear those types of shirts every chance I get. But to remind everybody, on that day, a group of despicable individuals planned for years and years and years about the best way to kill thousands of innocent human beings in the United States of America. This wasn't a military conflict. This wasn't planning a tactical operation, your army versus their army. This was meant to terrorize people and kill men, women, children indiscriminately. And they did it. And they did it beyond anybody's imagination, for heaven's sakes. Now, if anybody would have said that if they'd have made that into a movie prior to it happening, I don't think I would have gone, because it was so ridiculous. I thought there's no way it could happen. And yet we watched it unfold as a country. Now here we are again, and the United States of America has been dealing for some time with a country that not only harbors terrorists, that supports terrorists, that exports terrorism. And while our representatives are inside a building trying to make a deal with the devil, if you will, those people are outside in the streets chanting "Death to America" and "Cut the head off the snake." The leaders of that country, prior to that meeting, expressed their complete and utter disdain for the people of the United States and democracy during the course of that meeting and since that meeting. And yet it's going to move forward. What's scary about that, and when you think about it, and I'm only one person, I have an opinion much like everybody else, but if you free up hundreds of millions of cash dollars for a country like Iran, and that money flows to Iran, they're going to spend that money. And they're not going to spend it on food and shelter and clothing and schools and Little League ball fields and infrastructure. They're going to purchase weapons. And they're going to purchase them from somebody who has lots of them and is also starved for cash right now. And I believe that's going to be Russia. And those weapons will go back to the Middle East, and they will be filtered through Iran, and they will be used and distributed to all different kind of splinter groups, and innocent people will die. That's what happens when you make deals with terrorists. We will see 9/11 again in the United States of America. especially if we forget the lessons we learned. And unfortunately, I see evidence of that, especially coming from Washington, D.C. So, think about that. Think about it. It did happen. It was unthinkable prior to it happening, and now it's a memory. But we need to remember, and we need to learn from it. It'll be back. It'll be back. So, God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Nora. That was kind of on my statement list of 9/11, and I agree with everything you said. Also, it brought the country together, as bad as it was. It brought the country together and united the country, and flags and patriotism was everywhere. And we've kind of lost that a little bit since that time. So my plea is, if you have a flag somewhere, get it out, hang it up, put it on your rafters, get a flagpole. Let's show our patriotism once again. We are Americans. We're a melting pot, but in that melting pot, whatever you are, you're an American. And showing your patriotism and showing your love for this country by this flag that's behind us, and if you have one, fly it. If you don't have one, go get one and fly it. So we've got better days ahead, but there can be some bad times coming too. So we're putting a lot of faith and trust in our leaders to do the right thing, so we'll see how it all works out. I want to say that I took some mayoral prerogative and brought you a little rain this week, so hope you enjoyed that. It's a precursor, I hope, of the big snows in the Sierras and the El Nino coming and dumping a lot of water on this state. We need it awfully bad. Also, I might say, too, that I mourn the passing of Margot. We worked together many years when the hospital was a hospital before it became a district. And you're right, she was just a great person, icon of this community. Her thought was always for others and not herself. And she promoted that hospital as much as she possibly could, and we mourn her passing. She was brave with the illnesses that she had right up to the end, and it's just a loss of this community, of a really, really nice person. So, Margot, thank you, and you've got better days ahead of you now. So, I want to just put a plug in. Oil Dorado's coming up. The city of Taft and Mr. Jerry Helt have generously helped sponsor a former mayor's luncheon. We have 13 living former mayors, and I believe that we're going to have 11 of them come back to Taft, and some of them sitting right up here. And we're going to have them join us on the parade on October 17th, and afterwards meet up at the Mercantile Building for a luncheon upstairs. And we have about 60 to 65 available tickets at $20 a piece. So if you're interested, contact City Hall, and Belinda's number is 12, 13, or just call City Hall.
12.
763-1222 and extension 12. And or the chamber at 765-2615, and make your reservations. I'll be gone. I want to make a public notice to the city clerk. I will be gone from Sunday next week for a week's vacation. I won't be around. And but if you come to the chamber or the city, they'll get your reservations in. We'll get you some tickets and go from there. So the idea is to have the mayors come back and talk a little bit about their reign when they were mayors and what they saw for the future of Taft, and did it fruitate, and are we where they thought we would be. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a nice little get together. Well, anyway, that's all I have. Mr. Jones, oh, wait a minute. You're not up yet. Planning Commissioner's report. Do we have a Planning Commissioner report? Jerry? Nope. Yes? Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Jerry Livingston. I am one of the members of the Planning Commission, and yes, it was a very short Planning Commission meeting. We simply chose our representatives to the Economic Prosperity, or whatever the name of the committee is going to be. And those representatives will be myself and Bob Lycum, and the alternate will be Shannon Jones. And other than that, we had a brief report from our planning commissioner, our planning director on the housing element of the general plan. There have been a number of, I guess you've had all the meetings now for the public, and we're expecting back, I think, for the next meeting, right? We're expecting back the sort of the final version to be commented on by us. Are we going to be going on November probably? Yeah. Okay, so planning commission will be looking at the housing element in November, which then should be coming to you folks in December. And that's the...
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, department reports. Do you have a report?
I do, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm putting on my grant administrator hat right now, and I'm going to share with you that the city has been honored with an award from the CDBG program for $948,167. We were successful in our application that we submitted earlier this year, and that money will fund an infill sidewalk project for Public Works.
Sidewalks. Sidewalks, ADA curb ramps. It's in the area of South 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, between Front and Oak Street. Yeah. There's some areas up there that have no sidewalks, have no curb and gutter, that are actually in the city limits.
They need attention up there. They're kind of a forgotten child here in the city.
Not
so
anymore.
that's good.
We'll get all brand new curb, gutter, sidewalk, and ADA ramps.
Cool.
Funded by grant money. Fantastic.
How
Good
good
job.
is that? Well, thank you. That's good news. Wonderful. Doing a job. Any other reports? Okay. Item number 7, city manager statements. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to point out that the city will be represented at the ICSC convention this Wednesday and Thursday in San Diego, and hopes to bring some new development to Taft and increase our sales tax and property tax revenues.
Yeah, and I hope you're successful.
I've already gotten some phone calls. Are you going to be there? We need to talk to you. So
Really?
it's looking
All
good.
right.
Phone was blowing up today, so I was glad to hear that.
All right. Item number 8, city attorney statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No statement.
All right. Item 9, future agenda request. Does anybody have a future agenda request?
Do we need to put one in just in case there's the oil month or oil appreciation month, so we don't miss it?
Yeah, I'll support that. Make the month of October, for me, that did potential, I think, for October for Oil Appreciation Month. Yeah, it's supposed to be ongoing.
How are we going to do it? I mean, I understand the idea.
Yeah.
Oil industry, oil, energy, Kern County oil, how do you?
How was that last time? I'm trying to remember how it was in proclamation from last.
I think it was
May?
just oil and gas.
Oil appreciation or petroleum appreciation.
Petroleum appreciation.
We're appreciative of our relationship with the oil industry. And
We'll have to
energy
research
industry.
what we approved before, but I think he was right. I think it was approved for the month that we approved it in, and then we also was going to carry it on, and you guys proclaimed a certain month, so
Okay. well,
some
we're
research
in-
needs to be
We're doing
done.
in case now, we've got a consensus, and city clerk will research it. See if we've already done it, then we'll do an annual.
And if you guys want to do any proclamations or anything for El Dorado, I don't know if you want to, but this is the last time.
For the
we
Oil Dorado
requested
Committee?
Anything to do with El Dorado, like the El Dorado Committee, the sheriff and the posse, any of that, because I know they're going to be here next council meeting, I believe, so I don't know if you guys want to do anything, but
Yeah, I would support that.
Proclamation for all the
I'll say that.
volunteers at the El Dorado store.
Something for Oil Dorado Inc. as a whole?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe you back can get with you later.
You know, the problem with you give them a resolution and that there's no clubhouse. There's no office to hang it on the wall, so it'll go to the president of El Dorado, but it'd be a nice gesture, yeah. Okay, so
He's
you,
a hardworking guy. I've met that guy.
yeah, so staff will come up with something, I suppose. Okay, good, thanks. Good idea. All right, well, we're moving on to the consent calendar, items 10 through 14. All list items listed on the consent calendar shall be considered routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the city council requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Any item removed from the consent calendar will not be considered after the regular business items. Are there any items on the consent calendar that any member of the public would like to comment on? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, here we go. Item number 10, minutes of the September 1st regular meeting. Item 11, payment of bills. Item 12, City of Taft Cruise to install Americans with Disabilities Act ADA compliant curb ramps on Church Street. That was from a $50,000 from capital reserve for those construction funds. Item 13, street closures for the 2015 El Dorado Grand Parade. And that will be moving from Harrison Street up through and across Kern Street to Center and on the way down Center Street. Item 14, street closures for the 2015 El Dorado celebration. And those will be all over the city, and we're sure appreciative of city staff and knowing what's coming and all the hard work that they're going to be doing. So is there any item of the consent calendar that any council member would like to remove?
I'd like to ask for number 12, please.
You'd like to remove number 12?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then we have, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 10, 11, 13, and 14.
Motion.
Second.
Having a motion? We already have a second. Okay, motion and second, you got that? Madam Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember North?
Yes.
Councilmember Cryer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant?
Yes.
Councilmember Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Miller?
Yes, and that passes on a 5-0 vote. Item 12, City of Taft Cruise to install Americans with Disabilities Act ADA compliant curb ramps on Church Street. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has secured RSDP funding in the amount of $244,000 to pave the severely deteriorated section of Church Street. Federal Highway Administration requires that the agencies using state and federal funds for paving projects must first update curb ramps to the current ADA standards within the project area. Project area includes 18 curb ramps, 2 alley approaches, 2 drive approaches on rows of trails. Staff estimates the cost of materials for the construction project to be an estimated $50,000. Staff recommends constructing the curb ramps prior to the beginning of the project out in summer of 2016. Once bids are received, the staff will remove the construction contract with an updated budget.
Okay, the recommendation is a motion to appropriate $50,000 from capital reserves for construction of ADA curb ramps on Church Street.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Mr. Brian, I'm sorry.
all right.
Sometimes I got go brain dead. You had a question.
I had 2 questions. First, the scope as far as where on Church Street will this be affected?
That's from the Rainier Street alley all the way up to Sunset, somewhere around between Sunset and Pullman.
Okay,
That's
very
that
good.
Bad section.
And do we have a time frame in mind, or is this just
For
when that construction will actually happen?
the paving construction or the actual concrete?
They'll be pretty close to each other, correct?
Well, no, once approved, we're going to start on the concrete probably after El Dorado, and it'll probably take us a year because we have to work on that a little bit and work on everything else and work on that, but we have to have it done prior to bidding out the paving project in the summer of 2016. It has to be done or Caltrans to sign off. You can't use their money to pave anything unless you use it for curb ramps first. We don't know how to pave, but we can.
That's all right. I mean, we're looking at a $300,000 project instead of paying 100% for. We're going to pay less than 20%. So,
And all the curb ramps will be updated to current standards.
absolutely.
And, I think in the last 3 to 4 years, we've probably put in well over 188 curb ramps in this town, and If you remember, quite a few years ago, 10 years ago, I think, we had a council member that had, I think, 1 or 2 broken legs, and he pointed out how many curb ramps are missing in this town. Until you're in a wheelchair, you're disabled, you don't really realize how hard it is to navigate the city streets when you got to ride your wheelchair out in the middle of traffic. So since then, we've kind of concentrated on trying to get ourselves caught up on those. So.
Good.
Well, I'd like to commend on staff for the new striping of the crosswalks, which I've championed for a while now. We have the wider crossing, the ladder going across the street. Now it's much more visible to pedestrians, or for drivers to see that and become more aware of pedestrians.
Well, we were anticipating that council was going to approve the budget tonight, and you see the striping truck staged over here behind City Hall. They're going to be striping the center lines of all the roads around town sometime in the middle of the night. So we wanted to get that done before Eldorado.
Down 6th Street too?
6th and 10th, all Troy Club Road, Gardnerville Road, all of those, yeah. So we had to get that done before it started raining.
Very nice.
Okay, Mr. Norton, do you have any comments?
No, I believe everything has been discussed in great detail.
Anybody else?
No comment.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember North?
Yes.
Councilmember Cryer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant?
Yes.
Councilmember Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Miller?
Yes, and that passes on a 5-0 vote. Okay, here we are, end of the meeting. We're going to go into closed session. Big surprise. Conference with Labor Negotiator Craig Jones, City Manager, Government Code 54957.6, all units.